Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford Beach Volleyball, and you're watching or listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
I'm Alana Rennie of University of Arizona Beach Volleyball, and you're watching or listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
Hi, I'm Kate Privet of TCU Beach Volleyball, and you're watching or listening to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Edition.
You've tapped or clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on Mike.
Hey, good day, and welcome to College Volleyball Weekly Beach Top 20. Along the ride here is Alana Rennie of Arizona and Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford, and we happen to be missing the Horned Frog today, but it's for good reason. They're traveling, but we wanted to talk about the action here after 3 weeks here in collegiate beach volleyball, and wanted to start off with some of the hotter teams in the nation right now. And we just happen to have one of the representatives of one of the hottest teams in the nation. It's the Arizona Sandcats, and you got Alana Rennie playing with Grace Cook at the threes. They're getting it done in such a unique way, but I feel like the coaches are ignoring what Arizona is doing because they're not moving up or down, but they're undefeated for the most part. So let's let Alana step in, and then Charlie can chip in there.
Started our season strong, undefeated at home, and then went down to the Pac-12 South and had a couple tough losses. They were close and we were competitive, and then it kind of struck a fire in us to really come out and all guns ablaze in the next weekend. So we're able to have an undefeated weekend again. So I think we are 7-2. I'm pretty sure that's our record right now. So pretty happy with that. And then this weekend we have another chance to go undefeated again. So I know it'll be competitive, but I'm excited and ready to play some more this weekend.
I guess that's a good thing. Big weekend in Arizona, but I wanted to get Charlie's thoughts on her colleague from the Pac-12 here.
No, I love it. I think I love even more that all of these wins are being actively getting the job done is Alana. I think it's always really fun to see a co-contributor of the pod doing really well, let alone a co-contributor of the pack. But it's really fun. You and Grace have been killing it. It's been really fun to watch. I got to see you a little bit at Pac-12 South when we got to take our little selfie, send it over to Rob, and then say our goodbyes as you had to head over to UCLA and we were still at SC. But you got the job done and you were really consistent. And so I think that that's really fun for Arizona, for you guys to have a very staple pair in the lineup that gets the job done. You guys have talent throughout, but to have kind of a solid team in the middle of the lineup, speaking from experience and also just speaking from looking at teams all over the nation, you see a lot of the talent is when you have, and a lot of the strength and faith in your program is when you have that strength in the middle. And so seeing you guys being able to put up wins consistently is really awesome.
Yeah, it's you took down number 19 Pepperdine in a tight one. I think you were the dual clinching match.
We were, yes, in the pouring rain. Made the ball a little bit heavier, so everyone's shoulders were a little sore afterwards. But no, it was fun. It was a really, really good game. It was sort of in indoor terms, a reverse sweep. So the first flight, our 2s and 4s, unfortunately lost, and then our 1s, 3s, and 5s came back in the second flight and won. And it was a good game. Pepperdine's always competitive. Interesting weather situations for sure, but pouring rain, super foggy, very low visibility, but that's what makes playing an outdoor sport fun.
Well, welcome to the hashtag atmospheric river that Southern California is exuding right now. So
yeah.
Yes.
Well, Pepperdine was a good win because they're ranked 19th, and for the most part, they'd been taking down some top teams. They had just beaten Long Beach State 3-2, edged them out in that same day. So, them some really big duels going on just in the period of the first few days of the week. So let's jump up to our other one. Long Beach State was the biggest move in the AVCA poll this week from 16 to 13. I think they only had one win on the weekend this last weekend with the battle for LA is what it was. I believe they're at USC on Saturday and then UCLA site on Sunday, with their only win coming over FAU, which mean they're a top ranked team. But what do we know about Long Beach State, and what kind of potential does that team have as we move forward here in the season. Let's start with you, Charlie.
Yeah, so looking at Long Beach State, I mean, they've always been a highly competitive program, and I feel like Long Beach State has notoriously been a program that's been very middle ranked or maybe even underranked the last couple of years because of the fact that they put up a very good fight, a lot of really good wins. And looking at it, I mean, they barely edged behind Cal 3-2. They barely edged behind Pepperdine 3-2, which was a huge upset for Pepperdine. But I think that's interesting because like Long Beach State beat FAU 4-1, which in theory should have been a closer game than their Pepperdine match. So maybe Pepperdine, as Alana was saying, like Pepperdine puts up a really good competition. And so maybe they're also a little bit underranked, but Long Beach State, I mean, they're a notoriously great battle of a team. So I think that them making a jump makes sense to me.
Yeah. Alana, how about your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think they're a fairly consistent team, but you know, everyone has those ups and downs. So I think the 3-2 losses make sense. The 4-1 wins make sense. Also, I'm happy for them that they are moving up because I think they've been trying to prove themselves the past couple of years. So I think they're finally getting some good recognition. It's just the ebbs and flows that every team has. I think if they get that a little bit more consistent, then they can really rise consistently in the lineup or in the rankings. But I think they're a really competitive team, and we played them in the fall and they looked really good, and not totally sure what the pairings look like now because we haven't played them again. But yeah, they're fun to watch and always put up a good fight.
Definitely. Well, I was looking at Long Beach State this weekend, being as I was at the UCLA site on Sunday, and gosh, if I'm head coach Mike Campbell, the nightmare numbers I see every night are 2-3, because that's what their losses have been, 2-3, and it's every single duel, which means they're just a few points out each time in each one of the flights. And there definitely is a lot of promise, even though they did have some unexpected changes this year with, you know, Skylar German not coming back, and then, you know, some injuries, some people deciding just to like not play beach this year. But, you know, great products in Taylor Hagenow, the true freshman from, is it San Diego, Escondido? I know she's from the San Diego County area, but her and Malia Gementera played really well. And Mari Molina at the number ones with Christine DeRuz was also a really good match to watch them play in. Let's jump up to our biggest faller of the week, which was Stetson. What do you guys know about Stetson? Let's start with Alana.
I know they're really competitive. I know a girl on that team, and she is a firecracker, and she's really fun to watch. I think, you know, same thing with Long Beach is the ebbs and flows of the season come and go, and, you know, the rising and the droppings in the rankings. And unfortunately, teams, in order to stay where they are or rise, you need to win those ranked games. And I don't think they had many ranked games this past weekend, but I think they lost some crucial ones that they should have won, or at least had it be more competitive. But they did lose 3-2 to South Carolina and Tulane. So, you know, they play those teams again, it could be a different result next time.
Yeah, well, just they went from, at least the AVCA poll, from 12 to 19, which is a huge drop, but it wasn't as pronounced in the collegebeachvolleyball.com poll. But Charlie, I want to get your thoughts on Stetson as well.
Yeah, I think looking at Stetson, it is a huge drop as far as they did, but I do think looking at the scope of the South Carolina and the Tulane losses, when you look at teams like South Carolina and Tulane who are really trying to edge themselves up in those rankings, who are lower in the rankings, taking 2 losses back to back, like taking those losses to South Carolina and Tulane in the same weekend with Stetson, it makes sense to me that they would drop in the polls. I don't know if I would necessarily drop them to 19, but I see here in one of the rankings that they're at 16 now this week. And so dropping from 12 to 16 makes a bit of sense. I think that they're going to need to put up some better wins and some bigger upsets to be able to bring themselves back up into those rankings. I think obviously we've got quite a bit longer of season for Stetson to go, but I mean, big kudos to South Carolina and Tulane for pulling off a big upset, because I mean, that just speaks to the greatness of their programs. But yeah, Stetson, I think that they've got some work cut out for them to get themselves back up in the rankings now.
Well, it seems Stetson's 1s and 2s are the ones that are getting their solid points. That's a team of Shea Henson and Karen Zolnarchikova. And the twos are Carolina Ferraris and Anita Namike, the other Latvian in the States playing college ball. So they're both at 9 and 3 at the 1 and 2 spots. So they need someone to step up in 3s, 4s, and 5s, like Alana Rennie or something.
Exactly. No, I mean, and that's what we always see in kind of these bigger, more heated matchups and more like higher ranked teams, is we're seeing a lot of the wins at the 3s, 4s, 5s. We see a lot of talent at the 1s and 2s kind of nationwide. You look at any of the top 20 teams and you see a bunch of talent in those 1s and 2s pairs that putting up a 9 and 3 record at the 1s and 2s, looking at those pairs of Stetson, those are fantastic numbers for the teams that everybody's been playing and for the fact that everybody's putting up an incredible 1s and 2s team. But once you see the greatness in that 3s, 4s, 5s is when you start getting those big ranked wins. So Stetson can start pulling off wins at those lower seeds and at those middle seeds. I think that they're going to start having games turn their way. But until then, we're going to see a lot of strength and maybe more upsets.
Yeah. Let's go to the top of the poll. Actually, no, we can't skip this one, but someone with firsthand experience after this weekend, one of the hottest teams that we haven't been seeing a lot of mention of is LMU in their brand new facility. Coach John Mayer busted it open this weekend and hosted the first tournament, and Charlie got to visit it right off the bat, and LMU is undefeated. Unfortunately, Charlie's team, the Stanford Cardinal, fell victim to the home complex break open. So go and share a little bit about that, Charlie.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I feel like we'd be remiss to not talk about LMU because of the fact that they went undefeated this whole weekend and they put up pretty great ranked wins. Like all of their wins except for Concordia were ranked wins. And it was, I said it earlier, I think it was like a dagger to the heart to take that 3-2 loss to them and for them to break my mighty freshman's winning streak. But at the same time, I mean, LMU is an awesome program, and us coming that close to them, I think that it gives a really great taste for what the postseason is going to feel like. Would I have loved for us to have edged ahead in that duel? Yes. But I mean, big kudos to LMU having a home weekend, going undefeated on that home weekend, raising up in the polls to number 6 and 5, respectively, in the 2 polls. I mean, well earned, well deserved. They put up the wins that they needed to, and they did a really good job doing it. I think taking us 3-2 and we were ranked 1 above them, and then taking GCU 4-1 and GCU was ranked 2 above them. I was kind of expecting to see LMU edge ahead of GCU and us and kind of like see them just go above the 2 of us, and they did. So wasn't a huge surprise in the rankings, but definitely was a little bit of a dagger to the heart there.
All right, Alana, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think LMU, for some reason, in my opinion, I think they're sort of always under the radar a little bit. They're always very highly ranked, but always just sort of float, under people's radars a little bit. And I'm really happy for them that they were able to have a successful opening home weekend in their new facility, which is just, that could create nerves or that could create some like fire for that team. And it looks like it created some fire. So I think they were ready to go and really show what they were made of. And yeah, to have 3 of their 4 wins be ranked wins really is a testament to what kind of a team they are.
Yeah, it looks like Coach Mayer is kind of spreading up his lineup a little bit here, because Melanie Paul and is it Wilhelmina Preeti undefeated at the 1s, but I see that they've been jumping between the 1s and 2s. So, but they've been getting it done is the point. Their top flights have been taking care of business when they need to, and they're getting those wins as needed. So I wanted to jump over to the top of the poll. And since jumping into the number 1 spot, TCU has been unstoppable. They've only given up 3 dual points. Unfortunately, one of those dual points was from our missing co-contributor, who I said I'd be, throwing daggers at anyways. Kate knows. She's one of the people. Kate Privet of TCU lost one of those dual points, but for the most part is near an unblemished record. So they're beating down on some teams. LSU 4-1 win, and Florida State, I believe is a 4-1 win there. So what do we know about TCU and how strong are they really? And let's start with you, Alana.
Yeah, I think they're just a solid team. I think they played LSU twice and swept in the first one, and then lost just 1 game the second time they played them. But, I think they're also a fairly young team. So I think there's a lot of promise for them to really be something special in the future, and special continuing right now, because they are a tough team and they're really proving themselves. And it's really exciting. I wish we could play in the same spot as them in order to watch, but always just hearing about it and loving having our co-contributor Kate Privet with us, and unfortunately not today, but always fun to have success on the podcast as well.
Yeah. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I think Alana said a lot of it there. I mean, looking at TCU, I think I was expecting them to be a powerhouse this year, but I don't know if I was necessarily expecting them to be just sweeping and taking wins just left and right and absolutely smacking some teams. TCU, I mean, they're going to be really hard to beat this year. They have a depth to their program that is very reminiscent to me of USC last year. That's very reminiscent to me of past UCLA and USC programs. I think that this year could be the first year that maybe the title goes up for grabs. And I mean, TCU is definitely making the work of it at the preseason. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling into the postseason, but they're doing incredible things. I mean, I think all of our eyes last week when we were talking about it were really looking towards those LSU versus TCU matchups, because last year they were so close, so consistently. And I know last year we went to TCU and we took a 3-2 loss to them and like barely lost. It came down to my court, and unfortunately I lost in the third set 13-15. But I mean, we were right there with them. And this year, I mean, we won't see them until maybe the postseason, but they're a crazy talented program. I mean, sweeping LSU 5-0 and then taking them 4-1 on the second day. It's really hard to beat a good program twice, let alone to sweep a program that's that good the first time and take them 4-1 the second time. I mean, big props to TCU. I think they've well earned that one ranking, and this weekend's going to be fun to watch to see if they can keep that up, but they've been doing great things.
Yeah, I had to go look at their schedule, and they've only dropped 2 dual points, 4-1 to LSU, and then 4-1 to Florida State. That was back when they're 4 and number 2 in the nation. So yeah, they got their pedal to the metal, and I'm sure that Coach Hector will say they're not in postseason form at all. So even though they're pretty much international caliber talent. So
exactly. Holding themselves to really, really high standards and just continuing to improve through a season when they're already doing so well. Yeah, they're scary good.
Well, it's funny, even like last weekend, they didn't have the services of Coach Hector Gutierrez with them having a baby. So, maybe it's Maho. That's actually the key to winning at that program. Just kidding, Hector, if you're watching or listening.
I mean, I think that there's greatness to all of their staff, but I mean, speaking to Maho, she is a former AVCA Assistant Coach of the Year from 2 years ago. And I mean, the proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you guys as the athletes, what did you see this last week action-wise that caught your eye that you'd want to highlight? It could be the duels you competed at, could be results you've heard chatter within the inner circle of the student athletes. But what do you guys think? Charlie, start with you.
I think a huge win that we didn't talk about and a huge match that we didn't really mention yet was the Hawaii versus Cal duel out at the Queen's Cup Classic out in Hawaii at Waikiki. I think that Hawaii edging ahead 3-2 against Berkeley was a huge win for Hawaii. And it was one of their bigger tests that they've come ahead on. They had a big test that first weekend with us and UCLA and Stanford and UCLA. We were able to edge ahead of Hawaii. And so Hawaii coming in, having this Berkeley matchup was a huge test for them, and they edged ahead. So big good for Hawaii. And then I think the other team that I saw this weekend that we faced that I think isn't quite getting the love that it very much could would be Cal Poly. I think that Cal Poly has had a little bit of a slow start to season, to say the least. They are not in the rankings. They're just edging out of the rankings, but I think that they might be the best unranked team that we've played for sure this year. We took them 3-2 and they put up a really great fight. I have a lot of respect for the Cal Poly program. And I think that coming into this second half of season and kind of edging towards the middle of season, I think that they're going to start putting up wins. And so I don't think everybody should be sleeping on Cal Poly, even though they might not have the wins yet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's with Todd Rogers at the helm. He's got his pieces. He's aligning. He's such a cerebral coach that he's like making the little tweaks. And even this last weekend at the Battle for LA, yeah, the record doesn't look like it, but you can see the quality of play that's beginning to come out of the players, and they're going to end up like coming from behind in the Big West and knocking off the other teams. So, Alana, I want to get your thoughts on something that caught your eye from this last week.
Yeah, I was sort of just surprised by all the sweeps that happened. I think there were a lot of ranked sweeps. TCU over LSU, USC, sorry, Charlie, over Stanford, UCLA. So I'm just reading off the list. UCLA over GCU, FSU over Georgia State, LMU over FAU. Like the list goes on. Like there were just so many sweeps, and it's just so unpredictable because of how competitive the sport of beach volleyball is becoming nowadays. Like you wouldn't expect those sweeps, especially within the ranked teams of the top 20. It's just not really expected, and it can kind of shock some teams and of either the winners or the losers. They just need to kind of balance it out things. I think some teams are still trying to figure out pairs a little bit, or injuries come up, anything can happen in sports, but I do think it is very surprising still. And then I did want to give a shout out to the University of Texas for their first matches in Hawaii. Did not probably get the results that they were hoping for, but first year programs, a little hard to start, but just a top volleyball school to have beach now is also, it's just a big thing.
Yeah, that's an interesting tournament out there in Hawaii. That Queen's Cup, was it Nebraska?
Yeah,
Oregon,
Nebraska,
Texas, Washington, and host Hawaii. Am I forgetting anyone? Is that just those five? But yeah, so we a former contributor to the men's part of College Volleyball Weekly was serving as an assistant coach on the squad. So giving a hard time for selling out on the men's game and going over to the women's indoor and beach now, but it's got a tough schedule being on the beach and golfing all the time. But that's we won't drop any names, David Hunt. But yeah, it's exciting that another program has started up, and it was their first weekend of competition. So without a doubt, and you just look at the talent, and this is kind of going in a tangent of topics, but how much of the talent is coming from Texas? I believe one of your former partners was a Texan, and looking at lineups in the top 20 programs, there are women from the Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, and Austin. They're churning quality beach volleyball players, and I'm sure you have some on your squads. I'm not familiar as much with your squad, Alana, but I'd imagine that the coach is looking in that area as well.
Yeah, we have a couple Texans. Even they talk about it, the programs are growing and they have really good clubs out there that they're able to filter through a lot of girls and get their experience in coaching with in Texas. So it's a fun, they have beaches, but not really. So it's kind of like Arizona, but yeah.
Hard packed desert sand.
I was going to even add to looking at the depth of Texas. I mean, I've got some experience in looking at the juniors game the last several years, working with Beach Volleyball Clubs of America at the National Championships tournament. I've been a tournament director, and the last 2 years, for the first time, like in the history of youth national championship tournaments, a club from Texas has won the title instead of a club from Southern California, which is the most typical thing that you'll see an LA club take the title, or maybe a San Diego club in the past has taken the title. But for the first time, it's been Mad Sand who's been taking the title, and they're from Dallas area, and Austin Juniors comes out, and 210 from San Antonio. There's so much depth that's coming from Texas. I mean, look at Maggie Boyd. She's Pac-12 Pair of the Week with Lexi Denneberg, and she's a Texan herself. Her old partner from juniors, Gabby Walker, is playing great at USC. They're a Texas powerhouse duo, and they're like making a huge impact in the Pac-12 already. So I think having a program like UT who brings in a beach volleyball program, I think that some of the nationwide schools are going to be missing out on some Texas players who really want to stay closer to home. So I think UT is going to get really good really quickly, but it's cool to see them out here now.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you guys this. What athletes or pairs got your attention as far as performance during last week? And it can be the AVCA pair and Big West pair of the week, or Pac-12 pair of the week. Am I Freudian slip of the conference where I'm working in? Let's start with you, Alana.
Yeah, I do have a hard time trying to focus on certain pairs. I do like to look at the overall teams, especially because I'm bad with names. But
I'll help you out, Alana.
I do want to continue to just shout out Washington. I think they made a lot of moves in their pairings. And so I would like to just give a shout out to their team to just being diverse and being able to like play with a bunch of different people and still have a success with that. I know it's really hard. And like, as a player myself, we practice with a different person every single day. So we are used to it, and you don't know what other teams are doing. So if they are used to playing with one person and now they're just making the changes, then props to them for making that work and stuff and contributing to their team's success. But yeah, not really good with individual people. So
well, I will
I'll just do my shout out.
Well, I mean, from what I've got stat-wise, it's Chloe Lorena and Natalie Robinson who've been the big pair.
They're the most consistent pair, but I think there were a lot of changes since we played them.
Yeah. Yep. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm going to be speaking for Kate here because I feel like we'd be missing out on her little intake and insight of adding out the shout out for Maggie Boyd. I mean, she is kind of everybody's favorite freshman to watch. Honestly, I feel like it's kind of easy to pick her out because she's such a phenomenal athlete and just is doing incredible things coming in and breaking into the UCLA lineup as a freshman and coming in and playing at the ones and having such success is so impressive. So big kudos to her and Lexi Denneberg being one of the most phenomenal athletes I've ever seen in my life. They're just doing great things. And so them getting Pac-12 pair of the week was no surprise to me because they're an awesome team and they're very tough to play, speaking from experience. And then another team that I had eyes on from the Big West, giving the shout out to you, Rob, working for that conference, but that's Ilihia Huddleston and Jamie Santer of University of Hawaii. They went undefeated this weekend. And again, Hawaii had to put up some big wins this weekend. They played against Washington. They faced Berkeley, and having Ilihia and Jamie, again, middle of the lineup, looking at the two of them and having them put up the wins, as well as having a Big West pair of the week in Brooke Van Sickle and Kaylee Glagau, I think that was huge for Hawaii to be able to have kind of the stability from both of those pairs. It's awesome.
Well, I'm actually going to dump a few and take Kate's spot on here, but and I don't want to ever seem like a UCLA homer. So full disclosure, everyone watching, listening, I'm the MC host at UCLA Beach. So that's how I get to preview these teams and get to see the lovely ladies on the screen in person, at least, unless I get to take a sneak trip to wherever their homes are at or where they're playing at. I feel like this last 2 weeks, particularly, defender Perry Brennan has really kicked it into gear, like a new level that, I mean, is definitely beyond what I saw from 2-3 years ago, from juniors to first year. But I mean, she is such, if you look at her, like, oh, totally undersized defender. She's what, 5'5", 5'6", 5'7" on a good day. But she is so fast defensively. And, you would think that someone that is, we'll say, not exactly physical is what they like to say, is a shooter. But I am telling you, like Alana, she is taking cracks at the ball with any given opportunity. She sees the blocks up, she doesn't care. She's swinging away, but then she also has that finesse game. And she's doing the dig to kill over on one, catching teams off guard. I posted a clip on my Instagram. I didn't get that much video footage, but of course I got of her wisely going over, seeing the defenders pushed up against the net and just like going to a deep corner on the first ball. And, that maturity and that volley IQ that she has is definitely surfacing this year. And she's been mixing up between, I believe, the twos and the threes with Abby and Tessa, playing with the Van Winkle sisters, either the twos or threes. So seeing that come about has been really cool. And the other one, and I'm not tooting because Alana's on the show and all that, I look at data. And when I see numbers, then I look at the name like, oh my gosh, Alana and Grace are one of the top pairs in the threes, and they've been crushing. So I can't help but pay attention to that. And of course, I saw that Kate's her only surrendering the points for TCU, but we know Kate's got a good team, so they don't have to worry so much. But definitely one of the better players that I've seen this week. And I have to give a shout out to what's going on at Long Beach State, because they're in the battle. They're losing 3-2, but seeing them play, they're on the edge of something big. And I just don't know which team is going to be the recipient of them bursting out of the shell. And it's going to be a big upset, like a 5-0 upset of a top 10 team. So, but those are the ones I realized this last weekend, and, be curious to follow them as we go. Cause we are technically, it's sad to say, we're like just under the halfway point of the season with 3 episodes in, cause there's 8 or 9 total weeks of the season for you guys. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
I think it's 9 or 10, something crazy like that.
1/3 of the way in. So with that, I wanted to ask you guys, there's a lot of big tournaments, but what ones would you be focusing on this weekend coming up? And, there's a lot. We can talk a lot about all of them if you want, but I'm curious what you guys are looking at besides your own, or could talk about your own. So let's start with you, Charlie.
I think looking specifically, I'm going to be the East Coast rep for today because of the fact that we don't have an East Coast rep on the screen with us right now. And I'm going to look at March to May. It's the big tournament in Gulf Shores. It's the biggest Gulf Shores tournament that's going to happen this year until the national championship tournament. And that's hosting number 3 UCLA, number 20 South Carolina, number 6 LSU, number 4 FSU, number 10 Georgia State. It's hosting UAB. It's hosting number 19, or formerly number 19. I think they've moved up since, but Tulane. It's hosting Mercer and number 5 LMU. So that's a huge tournament. That's so many teams. I think it's some people's spring breaks right now. I wish I could say the same. I'm in like the heat of finals right now, but I think that's the biggest tournament that I'm going to be looking out for because of the fact there's so many powerhouses. But then I'm also looking at this matchup here. That's the surf and turf that's in Miami, and that's hosting Florida Gulf Coast. That's hosting number 1 TCU. That's hosting number 2 USC. It's hosting Tampa. It's hosting FAU and FIU, and FIU notorious rivals. So that's going to be a really fun matchup, especially because they're number 15 and 14. And TCU and USC being number 1 and number 2, I think that's going to be like my favorite match to watch this week, because will TCU be able to reign supreme, or will USC continue their hot streak that they've been running, working up in those rankings? I don't know, but it'll be fun.
Wow, great call, Charlie. Alana, what are you following up with? I mean, she hit the 2 big ones on the East Coast. Apparently she's getting tourism dollars from someone over there.
Focus on Arizona. So Arizona has 2 big tournaments this weekend. University of Arizona is hosting the Arizona Invitational. We have Southern Mississippi, TAMCC, which we are not playing, but they will be there. ACU and Cal Poly. I think it'll be really competitive all the way around, and it's always fun to see some other teams. And then GCU is hosting the Canyon Classic alongside number 18 Pepperdine, UC Davis, and ASU. So I think Arizona is always really competitive, and we bring out some good teams, so those will be fun to watch as well. But I will be also paying attention to the East Coast tournaments to watch those matchups.
Well, since you guys have those, I'm going to stick local, because Long Beach, I found out, is hosting a tournament right here, 20 minutes from me. So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I don't have to drive far and stay overnight somewhere. But they are hosting Stetson, which, at the beginning of the season, they're as high as 12. They've fallen back in the last week, but I'm just curious, I want to see if they're the real deal here in person. I'm curious what the weather's going to be like here in Southern California, because I think we're supposed to get more rain. And still keeping the 50s. So I know Florida teams aren't liking the cold weather here. So, but I'm definitely going to stop by that one. I want to watch the Stanford Cal matchup, because easily 2 of the hottest teams in the top 10 right now. And that's, one of our co-hosts on the show here, Charlie, playing at the ones, and you guys got Zoe back, or Zelani Hodel back. And you guys can start shuffling your lineup a little bit here, because I know you guys kind of mix partners with, I guess they're, whatever reasons why she hadn't started the season at the get-go, but I know that there's probably going to be some shuffling.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that it's going to be fun. We've gotten a little bit in a rhythm with our lineup the last couple of weeks, but again, we've had some illnesses. Like Zoe was sick to start the season. We have another player, Emma Morris, who's been out with illness, and she won't be back this weekend quite yet, but we're hoping to have her back sooner rather than later. But I mean, looking at the fact we've got some depth in our program that we've not had before. Cal has some depth in their program that they've not had before. We always have very interesting matchups when we play them. And they're hosting this year. It's called the Big Spike. It's in the spirit of the big rivalry game that's called Big Game between Cal and Stanford for football. And I think we're really looking forward to the Big Spike. I think it's going to be, again, like I was saying, like a very heated matchup, very, very tight. But I'm very excited to see how we do against Cal and to see how we all match up, because again, that's just prepping us for a really awesome postseason. So great stuff.
You know, you're trying to hide from all the media that's being given to you, Charlie, and congratulations on saying a new program high career wins. 67.
Yes.
Is that what it is? 67 victories, individual wins record with 67 victories. But not only that, there's like this biographical piece on you on stories right now. It says my Stanford story, and it's you. I just happened to see it. It posted 19 minutes ago. So everyone's got to go on Instagram, Stanford Beach VB, and find out who Charlie Ekstrom is, because we don't know her here. She's an idiot.
You are making me blush over here. Yes, it was really fun winning that last game against Cal Poly. Kate Riley and I almost said Kibbs because that's the nickname and that's what I call her so frequently. But Kate and I, we were able to pull off the dual decider against Cal Poly, and it actually marked my 67th win to tie my predecessor and former partner, Sunny Villapondo. And so it was so fun to be able to have that moment as the tire. I hope that we can continue to add those wins on. Hopefully this weekend can tack one on and be the sole winner and leader for Stanford with 68. But no matter what, I'm just really excited and proud to be representing Stanford as always, in case you've missed it. And so yeah, it's been great. I love playing with this team, and I'm very proud of what we're doing so far and excited to see where we keep going.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to ask you guys as athletes, I mean, you know, we're joking that this is the third episode in, but what kinds of things can we gather from this season as we move forward, you know, as we get closer to like conference tournaments and postseason play? Like, is what we're seeing now indicative of what we can see come postseason? Or, you know, our teams, have they found their rhythms, or is it still up in the air? Just because we've only had very little shifting in the top 10, but a lot of shifting in the 11 on. But that's just my personal take of looking at the data from a macro perspective. But you guys, you know, you guys talk in your team meetings, and you don't have to unveil all your secrets, but we'll call it student athlete insight. And let's start with you, Alana.
Yeah, I think, you know, you say we're only 3 weeks in, but that is a third of the season. So it is a quick season, but I think teams are still finding their grooves. I think some have carried over from last season, perhaps, or from their fall, and they're just in that rhythm. They've found it. And I hope that they continue it, because it stinks when you find it early and then aren't able to maintain it throughout the rest of the season. But I think a lot of teams are still working their way in, and maybe this weekend will show a couple things. Maybe there won't be as many sweeps as we saw the last couple weekends, and there'll be a little bit more competitive in terms of the numbers, and how people win might be a little bit more of a nail biter and have to rely on certain pairs, which can, you know, add some pressure, but that's sports, and that's what's fun about it. And, you know, I think some teams will be progressing still throughout the rest of the season.
Yep. How about you, Charlie?
Yeah, I think Alana said it really well there. And so I'm going to try to not repeat everything that she just said. But I think that I'm expecting to see a lot less sweeps, like Alana was just saying. I think that some of the sweeps that we've seen in this last weekend, I don't necessarily think of them as flukes. I think that we're seeing some programs just develop and find their rhythm a little bit faster than others. So I think that some programs that might be still working out some kinks, we're going to see less of those kinks as the season progresses and as we go into this second 2/3 and second half of season as we edge closer and closer to that. I think that postseason, we're going to see a lot closer matchups is kind of where what I'm taking, and with what I'm seeing with the closeness of how a lot of duels are going, with the exception of some of these sweeps that we saw this last weekend, I think we're going to edge back towards that closeness because, again, like I've been saying it for a couple weeks now, and the depth of nationwide beach volleyball is so crazy right now. We are seeing such good chemistry with so many partnerships and so many teams coming out and just performing at a really high level. And so I think that we're going to see a lot less sweeps. I think that there are going to be a lot closer duels, and I love it. I like that there's not as many powerhouses anymore. I like that the powerhouses still get sweat a little bit by programs, and I'm looking forward to more. I'm excited to kind of keep on seeing where programs develop and build.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see with all the big tournaments this weekend coming up. Looking at just an overall look at the data that I've been perusing, the 1s and 2s, they're a decent handful of undefeated teams remaining, which means the top number 1s and 2 teams are taking care of business where they're supposed to. And the teams that have the 3s, 4s, and 5s doing the winning are the ones that are tilting the scales and getting those W's for the up and coming programs. So, Alana, that's you, in case you're wondering, the 3s. So, yeah, no pressure at all. Just kidding. But another big week. Be sure to follow all the action on collegebeachvb.com. Follow these teams and athletes who are co-hosting here, do an excellent job of Arizona and Stanford. That's Alana Rennie and Charlie Ekstrom. And our missing piece this week, Kate Privet of TCU. But follow the programs. Go online, volleyballmag.com, you name it. Just follow them. Show the support. It's passive. It's easy. Go to their Instagram live feeds, and since no one's really streaming yet, but just support the programs in the most passive ways possible, which is just going social and clicking on their website. So Alana Rennie of Arizona, Charlie Ekstrom of Stanford, appreciate your time and wish you the best of luck this week.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Espero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.